This is Keys to the Shop, episode 464, an Encore episode of Making Order Out of Chaos, how to handle group orders in the cafe. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I am your host for the show, and really excited to have you along. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the show and share the episodes on social media with your network of people. It is just the story of everything, right? Where the coffee shop that's been around for a long time has still got people who don't know about it. And that is the same thing that happens with podcasts. Even though we have 800 and some odd episodes and 7 years of production, there are still people that would really benefit from knowing about Keys to the Shop. And the chances are very good that those people are connected to you. So sharing is caring, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now, Keys to the Shop Consulting is something that I've been so thankful to be able to provide over the years. This is a coaching and consultation wing, arm, or whatever of Keys to the Shop. We have this podcast, but I also am working one-on-one with coffee shop operators and owners to either walk alongside of you as you open your first coffee shop, or if you're looking to optimize and to make more effective and to create more thriving in your current operations, in your people and quality. That's what I have been able to help so many people on as well. Kind of split down the middle, is a lot of people need both, and I've been so thrilled again to help so many with these things. So if you're looking for a coach or a consultant to help you in the world of coffee shops, in opening your first or improving the one you have as you scale, refine, etc. There's so much to talk about, and I would love to have a conversation with you. In order to set up a free consultation, go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. That's CHRIS at keystotheshop.com. You can reach out on Instagram as well at Keys to the Shop. Just send me a DM. We'll get a conversation going, and it'll be great to talk with you. Again, for Keys to the Shop Consulting, chris@keystotheshop.com. Now, one of the things that I love is innovation that actually makes a difference. Now, there's a lot of innovation that's basically reheating old ideas, and that's contextualization. That's not necessarily innovation. I've got a lot of opinions on this. True innovation changes things and brings new ideas to the market. That's where the ground control brewer comes in. The ground control over at groundcontrol.coffee, that's their website, groundcontrol.coffee, has been changing people's world in terms of what you can expect from a batch brewer, because it isn't only a batch brewer. The award-winning technology does allow you to access incredible ranges of flavor with coffee that you thought you knew, but you reach new levels of knowledge with this brewer. It also creates extractions like 8-minute cold brew, as well as batched espresso for iced lattes and batched iced lattes. And their new machine is smaller, it's more affordable, and it sacrifices none of the output. And in fact, it's 30% higher in output for batched espresso for iced lattes and things like that. So if you're looking to up your game in terms of quality of your coffee, as well as efficiency, opening up new channels for income, lots of people have chosen to use the ground control brewer for just that and have been very successful in doing so. Go ahead and go to groundcontrol.coffee to learn more. When we're talking about plant-based beverages in the shop, it matters who you work with, because it matters who you serve. Your customers are the most valuable thing in your cafe next to your staff. And the things that you choose to serve them and give your baristas to work with matters. That's why if you're looking for the best plant-based beverages, then the Barista series from Pacific is an incredible choice. It is created for baristas, tested by world-class baristas before it is released to you to use in your bar. It stands up to the heat from steaming, produces awesome silky texture, and also creates balance in the beverage, which focuses on the coffee. So go to pacificfoodservice.com, get samples, and try it for yourself. I think you're going to be amazed and pleased, and so will your customers. If you're looking for the best plant-based beverages, you really need to consider the Barista series from Pacific. Okay, everyone. Well, I'm really excited to have you again on the show today, listening. Thank you. And I am Excited because this is one of those really practical episodes that we put out a long time ago. I mean, it was like, I believe the first year that Keys to the Shop was in existence. And the idea came from a question that a listener posed. They had gone through Instagram at Keys to the Shop, and a question focused on handling group orders in the coffee shop. And the question was basically, hey, there is a lot of confusion and chaos that happens when there are families or groups, and this might happen to you if you live in a tourist town, if you live in a place where there are lots of events, or you just have book clubs and large friend gatherings, and it happens in all different kinds of iterations, right? So there's groups of people who often will bring with them a disorderly way of trying to get their coffee at the register. And from behind the register, we often feel very frustrated. We like efficiency. We like to flow. We like the simplicity of you come up here, you speak to me, I speak to you, you give me money, we're done. Of course, you know very well that that's the kind of transactional stuff that doesn't really make for a great hospitality experience. And so the question is, as a Keys to the Shop listener, I think that you are of the more discriminating variety in terms of taste of hospitality. You prefer the finer things in terms of standards for yourself. You want great hospitality in those moments. And how do you do that? Well, this is where we went in depth to some practical advice as to how you can handle the groups of people in a patient and classy way, in a way that actually gets them what they want and helps you as well, so you don't burn out in the process. So there's a lot of discussion here in terms of mindset, phrases you could use, tact that you can take when certain group behaviors start to surface in front of the cash register. For the most part, we are guides. We are guides to people's experience, and it's easy enough to handle one person's order, and sometimes it can be difficult when even just one person is confused. Now, it's a lot more difficult when there's a group of people who are distracted, disinterested, not very decisive, and all of the other things that can happen. So order out of chaos is a challenge. It's a challenge that I think we need to rise up to. Just as much as dialing in an espresso, we are going to take this opportunity of having lots of people in our coffee shop as seriously as we would dialing in a great shot and honing our skills as baristas. We are social baristas in a way. So that's why I'm bringing this one back from the archives, all the way back from the first year, and reacquainting you with some of these ideas. And I would love to hear from you about what you have found helps with group orders. When people come in the cafe and it's really packed, what do you do that we didn't mention here that really helps? Put it in the comments on Instagram. If you aren't following Keys to the Shop, go ahead and do so. It's at Keys to the Shop on Instagram. And I would love to hear some of those ideas from you. So without anything else from me, let's get right to it. Here now is the Encore episode of Making Order Out of Chaos, Handling Group Orders. Meredith, who works in Little Rock, Arkansas, wrote in this. She says, "Hey, Keys to the Shop, wanted your take on managing a barrage of requests. Periodically, we have large groups or families that come in and don't necessarily understand our need to specify their request or direct the conversation. It's stressful when people order and then walk away without paying or allowing us to clarify or talk over each other. I'd love to hear tips for how to encourage order within chaotic requests." So today's show, Order Out of Chaos, comes from this. And thanks very much, Meredith, for writing in. And I hope today's show is helpful to you. And to all of you listening, I think we're going to be talking about more than just the ordering process. We're going to talk about some preliminary understandings that are really necessary for you to handle this the right way. First of all, one of the things that I've talked about before, coming to work as a barista, you've got to know yourself well enough to prepare for what's about to happen. Now, we in coffee are used to operating with individual transactions. So when groups come in, be they families, friends, whatever, they can bring with them a certain amount of chaos. So like imagine you're working the bar and there's no line, and all of a sudden a family comes in.
For a lot of people, and I've felt this way too, that represents a certain feeling of dread rather than if 5 individuals came in. So if like 5 people in one group come in, there's a difference between that and 5 individual people. So why is this the case? Why do we feel that thing in our gut like, oh boy, here we go? It happens because we don't effectively prepare ourselves for groups. We expect individual orders in a series that have a beginning, middle, and end. So one customer is through, and then the next shows up, orders, pays, we make their drink, and they pick it up. And we keep doing that over and over again. And whenever there's a complex order, it's like this glitch in the matrix. All of a sudden, there's no windows in the building. We can't get out. And there's this group right in front of us. What are we going to do? The line's not moving. And that doesn't seem natural either. The line out of the side of our eye, if you're on the espresso station, you almost feel like something is wrong, like something bad is happening over at the register because 5 people have sort of grouped together and are ordering together rather than 5 individuals sort of single file going bit by bit, kind of an assembly line of customers. So understand that we are conditioned by and large, at least in America, or, if you work in a cafe that's designed this way abroad. I know we have many, many people in different countries who listen to this show. I don't know what your cafe is like, but my experience in coffee bars is we do better and we feel better when we're dealing with a series of individuals. A group of people might be complex in how we have to manage them, but let's get this also out of the way up front before we talk about some practical tips that you can use to manage this well and create a great experience. This is something we've talked about in management meetings here recently, which is our busiest times in the cafes are the times when there are a lot of people there. When there's a lot of people in your cafe, there is more eyes on you, more eyes on your product. Those are the times that are really high leverage times for your reputation as a company. You don't really build your reputation based on a slow time when you make 1 or 2 lattes over 30 minutes. You might feel better about the quality of your drink and how clean your bar was and everything else, but the customer, by and large, is going to spread more word of mouth from those times when it feels chaotic. We have to embrace that fact. Groups represent the same thing. It's like a concentration of people where they're coming from different places. There's a certain mix of different backgrounds that come in. There are people who don't want to be there necessarily, but their friend wanted to go, so they're coming with them, and their first time in a coffee bar maybe. And there, of course, I don't need to tell you, that's a great opportunity to maybe introduce them to your brand and your coffee. What about the parents who are in town for a graduation or the birth of a new grandchild or something, and your regular who comes in at 9:30 and gets that Americano with a bagel to go, loves you guys so much. They wanted to bring them, their family, to see this coffee shop. It's my favorite coffee shop. And it's really not fair of us to give them anything less than a great experience because we want to honor their patronage, this person who's in our shop every day. And they've said all these great things about us. So it's up to us to honor them. And something that we talk about at the store is at holiday times, this is particularly true. And this is the kind of thing we talk about with gift cards, for instance. Like when people give a gift of your coffee, they're advertising for you. And now we've got this group of people in, and as ambassadors of specialty coffee, we use that language to describe people who are competing in coffee, who win barista competitions. We're all ambassadors of specialty coffee to people who buy specialty coffee. And especially so when we are in front of people who might not be into it. So groups represent a great opportunity to honor your existing regulars who bring the group in, to honor the reputation your coffee bar has that people heard about in advance, and to create new customers and opportunities for specialty coffee and your store. And you become better too as a professional when you learn how to deal with this effectively. So let's move on from here with the understanding that this is not a hurdle that we want to jump over. It is an opportunity that we want to embrace. And here's where we get into some practical things. We have to be sensitive to how our customers feel, especially the group. A group of people might feel any number of things. They might feel confusion about where to stand, being self-conscious about the size of their own group. It's not, some people don't really care. They just don't have that kind of sensitivity. But I see a lot of people feel uncomfortable because they know that they're kind of in the way. And a lot of times when people wander away from a group, it's because they feel awkward. They just don't want to be there, right? And we'll get into why that is the case and how we can combat that, because that's a problem with ordering and how we embrace the group itself and control the situation. Some other people feel frustrated at people in the group. You might see some bickering. I thought you were paying, or I thought you were going to order me something. Well, you were in the bathroom. I didn't know you wanted the can you put that on the order? She wants a latte, or he decided that he doesn't want that bagel. I'm sorry. There's a lot of things that can happen in the midst of the orders that not only can frustrate you as a barista, but kind of embarrass the people who are there too. So you have to be sensitive to that. And a lot of people are excited. Some people are excited to be there in your coffee shop, or they want to be the tour guide to their friends for your coffee shop. So there's this mix of emotions. And we could talk about that mix of backgrounds. This mix of emotions that people bring needs to be handled with confidence and guidance. So you need to guide them and give forward momentum for them to have a good experience, because they could kind of stop themselves in their own tracks if they don't receive guidance from the people who represent the space that they are in. Your cafe is essentially, you have to become a tour guide. You're taking people and pulling them around to the cafe where they're going to order, where they're going to pick up their drinks. You're answering questions, and you're not only focused on the details, but you're also focused on what's going on all around you. So in order to control this process, you need to be confident and hospitable. So that means your attitude, your stance, your tenor behind the bar has to be one that exudes confidence, happiness, excitement for the group. A group, more so than anything else, needs to latch on to one thing that will help guide them through, because everybody has different ideas in the group. No one will go anywhere unless you take control and make them see that, hey, we got this. We got you. What can we do for you? When you're confident and you're able to, guide the group well, people will feel comfortable, and people are better thinkers when they're comfortable. So the confusion that people have at the register when they're in a group, a lot of times is the reflection of the confusion that we reflect to them as the staff. We don't greet them in a way that lets them know that we're in a place that can handle their group. So I would say that if you have a group that's a little unwieldy, part of that is going to be, how are you presenting yourself to them? Do you command their attention by your presence at the register or at the espresso machine? Do you engage them automatically and guide them along the path of getting the coffee and having a great experience? Well, then if you don't, they tend to guide themselves, and then everyone starts to feel lost. So now we know what the goal is. The goal is to make them feel comfortable. Like one of our managers, Philip, says, he wants people to feel acknowledged, welcomed, and included. So that's a very good thing to strive for, especially because you're trying to combat the inevitable awkwardness that others around them and they themselves might feel. So here are some suggestions. Number one, you and your team, your baristas, especially if you're a manager, need to develop a plan for how to deal with a group when they come in. This does two things. One, it kind of reinforces the idea that this happens in our cafe, so you're not taken off guard by it. You actually have a plan. A lot of times people don't talk about what to do when a group comes in, and the manual is built around a single file individual order system. So is there a plan in your cafe to deal with this different scenario. I know that we talked in the second episode of Keys to the Shop, which was really the first episode because the first was a introduction episode, which doesn't count really. The second episode was a workflow with Ryan Soder, and workflow is huge when it comes to dealing with groups because you have to lean on your systems heavily in order to maintain the flow of service and get them all their drinks in a timely manner. But the plan that you come up with in terms of a group has to include how you greet them, what you do in order to bring them into your store and get them to order in an orderly way. Number one, when they come into the store, you acknowledge them. You've got to let them know that you see them. And when you do that, they know where to go. The place where you want them to go is the place from which they should be greeted. So if you want them to go to the cash register, then the person at the cash register should greet them. See, that's a plan. And it kind of plays into the psychology that people have where when they're coming in, they want something that they can latch onto. It's a safety net. This is the place where I'm going to go because it's the first thing that I see that's friendly. I don't know these couches. I don't know that chair. I don't know where the bathrooms are, but I know somebody greeted me at the cash register, and that's where I'm going to go. And guess what? That's probably where the group is going to go. Guide them through by your greeting. Make eye contact. And then when they come up to the register, you basically have their attention, and you want to continue that momentum. So first thing, make eye contact and greet them. Command their attention, draw them in, acknowledge them, and then when they get up to the register, continue that momentum, continue that eye contact, ask them how they're doing, say hello, and what can we start making for you today? A good suggestive question to say, we are ready to start stuff. We are ready to start. You don't want to rush them, of course, because a group is going to take a lot longer to make a decision sometimes, and that's fine. It's okay for them to take more time. You can't rush it, or else what's going to happen is they're just going to default to ordering drip. Now, that happens with regular customers too, who are individuals when they feel pressure from the barista, from the people behind them, whatever. So don't rush them. Let them make their decisions. Be on their side. Again, hospitality is done for people. It's not done to them. We're not trying to herd them necessarily. We're trying to create an experience for them, while at the same time, we want to continue to serve other guests as well. So there's a tension there, yes. So one of the questions you can ask first after you're done greeting them, etc., is ask, is this together or separate? It's the kind of thing that you want to ask of a group, only because they might have a plan that already exists, like we're going to pay separately and they already know, or one person says, no, it's all going to be together. And usually the person who says it's together is the person who is going to pay. In these situations, it's really good to have a grasp of what your POS system is capable of doing. And most POS systems are able to hold an open check. So if it's everybody paying individually, you don't need to do this tab thing. You can just pay and then, guide them through the process and start making the drink the way you normally would in your workflow. But if it's one person paying, then you can start a tab. And I would say that in almost every case where this happens, you start a tab because there's a possibility that somebody, like Meredith said in her question, somebody might walk away. And what if the person who walks away is the person who's the card holder and they haven't paid? It would really suck to erase every single thing in the register and then have to redo it based on memory or have to rewrite it out on a piece of paper for later. So take advantage of the tab system. Maybe that could be a part of your plan is when there's a group and the one person paying, start a tab with their name on it. And I would even say if it's a group, you might even suggest to them that you could keep a tab for them. That way, they don't feel the pressure of having to get everything all at once, and they can just throw it on the tab when the line dies down. I've seen this happen so many times where when you have a tab open, everybody gets their drink, they're sitting down, they're having a good time, and then they want to add one more thing to it. All I have to do is press a button and it's on the tab. Now, when people start ordering, this is where most of the chaos comes from. When you lead with a question, so what can we start making for you? There's usually going to be somebody who is the first person who knows what they want. It could be the person that's like fed up with this group and it's like, well, I just want coffee. I don't know what they want. I just want coffee. Now, you already know, you've already asked, is this together or separate? So we've got that point of clarity. Now it's a matter of getting the orders right. So you take that order, and if it's individual, they pay and you continue. You get their coffee or however your workflow works. And then the next person comes in line, right? What often happens in the middle of this is people will start interrupting one another. Somebody will start to order something, and then somebody else will tack on a item to that order, or they will throw a wrench in that person's order and say, are you sure you want that? That, I don't know, you might be up late if you get regular coffee. And now it's taking a little bit more time because they're wondering if they should do decaf. And you've just got to be patient, sit there and engage in that process with them. Part of the mistake that we can make with a group is letting them fend for themselves in front of us. And it creates a wall. So if you can insert yourself into that conversation. So in this situation, if somebody's wondering if they want to get that cappuccino regular or decaf, and their friend is saying, I don't know, do you want to do that? Because you might be up a long time. You can just sit there and listen to them. Or you could say, well, we can make that half calf, or we totally can make that decaf. Our decaf is really delicious. And now you have created momentum. You have created more clarity and told them what you can do. You have facilitated a service for them in the midst of their conversation. But what I've done in the past, and I know a lot of us do, is we will listen to people and wait for them to get done sorting it out, and we're just kind of rolling our eyes. And I mean, I'm not talking about recently necessarily, but you kind of roll your eyes and think, when are these people going to be done ordering? Oh my goodness. And then you repeat it back to them like, okay, so decaf, cappuccino. Almost like you're impatient with them. That's the last thing you want to be, is impatient. Embrace the length of the order. It might be longer. It probably will be, but it's much better to be kind, patient, and involved than it is to simply be impatient, frustrated, and not think clearly. So in the chaotic request, sometimes you will get interrupted. Sometimes somebody will want to ask you a question, and you'll have to have a mind that recognizes that somebody asked a question over here to your right, but the person in front of you is the person you're still engaging with. Here's the thing. You can't just ignore what that person said, because you heard it and they know you heard it. So both of you are expecting something to happen. This is where the plan comes in. It's going to be a matter of addressing it in a non-committed way so that you can continue to ring up the customer in front of you. So have an arsenal of little phrases that you can say like, oh, absolutely, we can do that. I'll be right with you. But if you only say, absolutely, we can do that, what does it sound like? It sounds like a commitment. It sounds like they just ordered. And they might think that they just ordered, and then they walk away. You have to make it very, very clear what's going on, and do so in a way that doesn't make people feel shamed for interrupting. Right. So have that phrase ready to go so you kind of keep the momentum of what's happening in front of you going, and then recognize them and the validity of their request and their presence. Also, when you don't answer them, if you just ignore them, you're not just ignoring their request. You're ignoring the person, and people feel really awful about that, like they don't exist. I mean, this is already a problem in specialty coffee, in coffee bars. People feel invisible right up until the point the barista has to drag their eyes up from the counter and line them right on you and ask you, what do you want? That's a lot of people's experience of baristas. I hope most of us in the Keys to the Shop community here would not be in that particular situation. We don't want people to feel like they're putting us out by their request. So plan those little phrases, the little bookmarks that let you come back to it and say it says to the person, I recognize you, I validate your request, and here is the time frame within which I will address it. That is order. That is creating order out of chaos. And it needs to be happening even in individual orders when people ask for the Wi-Fi password over the top of a customer trying to order their drink. It's not just groups. It's a good skill to have no matter what. You just need to have the training and confidence in order to carry on two thoughts at the same time. Also, another little note here, strive not to correct people before you give them something. Our coffee bar has an espresso machine, or the espresso station is the first thing that you see. So they might line up at the espresso machine briefly. And what you want to do is talk to them first and then redirect them, acknowledge them, validate their existence. Don't define them as a rule breaker as soon as they enter the space. Put yourself in a position of providing a landing space for them, validation of their presence, and then redirect them. Say something like, sure, okay, well, let's ring that up over here at the cash register. Now, when you do that, obviously people are like, oh, I'm sorry. People apologize oftentimes. Some people don't. That's fine. But what you didn't do is that when they lined up, you didn't say, I'm sorry, yeah, we have to take orders at the register. Then there's the thing where all the people behind the bar watch this person walk behind the machine over to the register, and then they say the exact same thing they just said 5 feet the other direction. It's awful. It is really awful. We are on their side. And a group is not just a group. It's a collection of individuals who each and every one of them want to be recognized and valued. So to recap a little bit, we are in the middle of giving you some ideas to put in your plan for how to deal with groups when they come into your store. Eye contact, keep their attention, keep the momentum going, reflect hospitality and a we got this attitude that lets them feel comfortable so that they can think clearly and enjoy themselves. Ask them if this is together or separate so that you can know what kind of a transaction it is. Then you can proceed from there to either set up a tab for a group, or you can just deal with each order individually the way you're used to, while recognizing they're all in the same space and they're all in the same group. You have to bring clarity and communication and strive not to correct people before you give them something. Recognize them as an individual, especially if they're part of a group that is a larger group. They might feel the kind of confusion that it makes them feel awkward. You want to get rid of that. So kind of going on the idea of people ordering at the wrong place and how to guide them, you're going to want to continue to give people guiding phrases. So one of the things we don't do very well sometimes is this. Like we'll say your drink will be ready up at the counter, and the customer doesn't know what we mean by the counter. So they think anywhere on the counter, the drink will be ready. It's better if you just say, Mary Kate is going to be done with your drink in just a few minutes here, and it will be up over at the counter at my left. And now that is a very clear way of describing where people should go when their drink is up. You need to be showing people where things are, what they are, and guide them into decisions along the way. And that's how you control what happens with a crowd. Now, in the midst of the group order, something else kind of gets forgotten about, and that is your regulars. Your regulars are still there. They're behind the family. You know, they just are going to work, and they just want their normal drink. But for some reason, all of a sudden, and this is, they don't know why this group of people is there, but they're never usually there. And we feel attention too, because we know that John just wants a large coffee. And we're trying to get this group to have a great experience too. So one of the things that we do is we greet far back in the line, right? We acknowledge people not just in front of us, but also behind the customers that we're talking to. Make eye contact and engage with them a little bit. Not necessarily in a committing sense, but in a sense that says, I see you. I know you're here, and it makes them feel glad to be there. So if you're having a conversation with the people in front of you, you can still talk with your eyes to the people behind them. So you're telling a story, or you're describing something about your city that they should go to later if they're visiting. Make eye contact with the customer that's not a part of the group. And now this will do two things. It'll make the group feel like they are part of the regulars, and it'll make the regular feel that they are recognized in the midst of this and somehow are helping with this group. So, bring people together. This is what we do. This is community in the coffee shop. So now everybody has ordered and hopefully everybody has paid. One more thing might happen here, and that is somebody might forget to pay. And you have two options here. You can either chase them down and say, "Sir, miss, you forgot to pay for your cappuccino." And now 8 people now know that, whoever he is, forgot to pay for the cappuccino. Great. So now it feels kind of awkward, like, oh gosh, I forgot. You could just talk to them directly when you give them the cappuccino. In this case, it's not necessarily wrong for them to jump the line and ring that cappuccino up really quick. Okay. What it might be a little bit awkward, but what you have done is you've helped the customer save face. So the principle here is you've created an environment where you're willing to absorb some of the awkwardness in order for the customer to rectify the situation privately with you rather than publicly with everybody. So that's just a little aside. What might happen if somebody forgets to pay? Just have a principle that you want to resolve it as privately as possible, because you don't know how sensitive people are about that type of thing. And just bring it up for them really quick and then, move on. So let's talk about the order after it's put in. Now you go through the workflow, you're creating your beverages, and who is ultimately responsible for the group's order being delivered to them. What happens with a large group or any group is they tend to sit down or gather in a distant place where there's room for them to gather. And they might not hear you call out the drink, whatever it is. You want to know where they are in the cafe. Make eye contact with them when you call out the drink. That way you don't have to say it so loud if you're in that environment where you call out drinks. If you can bring it out to people, go ahead and do so. And in that moment, when you bring it out to people, let them know that the other drinks are coming up on the bar shortly as well. That way, people have the opportunity to kind of gather their things if they want to doctor the coffee up a little bit. Bringing coffee out to people is always such a great idea. It's always so fun to do. People aren't expecting it. But oftentimes, too, giving people the opportunity to pick up a drink from the counter means they don't have to bring their drink back to the condiment bar to put sugar in it or cream or whatever they want. So, there's a couple of ways you can deal with that. Again, you want to know where the people are. You can hold all these things in your mind, by the way. The brain is a very powerful thing. And if you train yourself, you can kind of know where that group went. And when that drink comes up, you can call it out in a regular tone, making eye contact with them, and they will come get their drink. But you never want to have a drink dying on the bar, as they say. This is just for some reason we don't want to leave the bar, or we are innovative to a point, but not to the point where we are delivering drinks to the customer. So make sure that somebody is ultimately behind the bar responsible for getting that drink out to that group, and they are all set. Now, when the group has all of their drinks and they are all set, whether they are going out after that with all their to-go beverages or they are just sitting down, you should probably ask them, is there anything else that we can get for you? They're guests in your cafe for that moment, even if it's to go. I think of Casey Underkoffler in episode 30 of the show. He calls customers guests. Their cafe is a part of a restaurant called the Bachelor Farmer, and so that language travels over. But when you think of a customer as a guest and this group of folks in your store as guests, then you're not going to simply wipe your brow after the group has gone through and think, whew, that was really hard. I'm glad that's over. But they're still in your cafe. They're still there. I mean, your job is really not done until the last person in that group walks out the door. And until then, You as a group, you as a team are responsible for them as a group. So we've talked about a lot, and you can tell by the way that I've chosen to address this that a lot depends on us changing our mindset about groups and then making a plan to be welcoming and practical, guiding them with confidence and being on their side, helping them make decisions. And in the end, if you manage the group this way, simply with care and due diligence with that, working a plan with the end goal in mind of them having a great experience where they feel taken care of, then you've done your job. You've minimized the friction that is possible in these situations, and you might win this customer for life. You never know. And you're definitely going to feel better about yourself as a professional with something that is patiently well handled over time. So that's just a little bit about how we can care for a group that comes into the store. A lot of empathy, a lot of planning, a lot of patience, kindness, confidence, and being a tour guide. It's funny because I was talking with a friend of mine who gives tours at a distillery here in Louisville. He used to be a manager of one of our stores at Sunnergasse. And we were talking about, he is the tour guide manager of the distillery. And all of the same things apply to his field. People come in with lots of ideas, emotions, and backgrounds, expectations. And as a tour guide, one of the things he said is you've got to kind of absorb their energy and reflect it right back to them, almost like a way of acknowledging, like, I see you, I see what you're doing, and I see and recognize you. And now here we're going to another room, or we're paying for the drink now. In our case, in a coffee bar, or we're going to deliver your drink down to this counter. Sometimes when you guide people, you might feel as though you're squashing the organic and, community nature of things. But if you didn't do it, you would find that the experience would be much, much worse. So it's a necessary component of your job to take control. The manner with which you take control is based on the story you tell yourself about a group. And the whole point of this episode today is not only to give you some suggestions about ways that you can deal with a group of people in your cafe and create order out of chaos, but it's also to say that we are in the driver's seat more than we think when it comes to how people act, react, and experience our cafes in a group.
Well, everybody, I hope that you enjoyed that. And again, I want to hear from you. What do you do to help this go well in your coffee shop? When there are tons of people, just like we talked about in the episodes Holiday Hospitality Part 1 and 2. Did we do a Part 3? Maybe we did. But the point is that when there are tons of people in your cafe, just go time. It's the time for you to show what you can do. It's easy enough to handle one person, but the reputation that you build is, one customer at a time, but often that's groups at a time. And those people will really have kind of a memory of places that simply were frustrated by the mere presence of their group. And their instinct is to avoid those places that made them feel a certain way. And we want to become resilient. We want to be resourceful. We want to have tools in our tool belt, frameworks, mindsets, and practices that'll help us. And hopefully this conversation helped you do that, if not just sparked your curiosity and thinking to come up with your own set of practical steps to take in handling group orders and making order out of the chaos. So if you have any questions, comments, or feedback for me about today's Encore episode, go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. And if you are interested in Keys to the Shop consulting, where you get to work one-on-one with me, if you are opening a coffee shop or you are just wanting to improve your cafe, that's the operations, the people, the quality, there's a lot for us to talk about, no doubt. So go ahead and reach out, chris@keystotheshop.com. And with that is the end of the episode. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe, share the show on social media, wherever you get the opportunity. You could even leave a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. That'd be amazing. But all in all, I'm super happy to have you as a listener. Thank you for your support. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.